5 loaves and 2 fish. When they were left, when at the end of the meal they had 12 wicker baskets. What I'm going to give you today is just an introduction to a very serious topic, and hopefully as time goes on, we can go to the 12 baskets and find greater nourishment. 40 years ago, in July of 1968, Pope Paul VI published an encyclical that would perhaps be the most difficult encyclical in modern day history. It was called Humanae Vitae, Human Life. It's the most talked about papal encyclical, as I said, in recent history. The amount of hostility directed towards Humanae Vitae has been so great that most people are astonished when they first learn that contraception has not been a hotly debated issue since the very beginning of the church. Contraception really became a debated issue beginning in the 1930s when the Anglican Church made a decision to allow it to be used for extraordinary cases. Within society, the first clamoring for change appeared in the late 50s and early 60s with the widespread availability of birth control pills. Meanwhile, in political and social realms, there were perceptions of a population problem, which we know now is not so. Many nations across Europe and even to the north of us are experiencing a -0 population growth. So there was this problem that was seen to be huge, too many people, and growing sentiments that it would be inhumane for the church to continue with a policy that promoted large families. Now, I want it made clear, and I'll clarify that a little later, the church has never told people to just have children for the sake of having children. That has never been the teaching of the church. The church has always taught that people plan responsibly. There are some who want large families. There are some who may not. But whatever decision is made is one that is made between the husband and wife in prayer, and also knowing with full knowledge of the teachings of the church. In the meantime, feminism had also begun to make itself felt with its demand that women be given full and equal access to employment as well as political process, which they should. Feminists argue that having children had been a hindrance to such opportunities in the past, and that contraception, not having children, would enhance the careers of women and be a great boon for them in the future. When Humanae Vitae was released in July of '68, 40 years ago, it went off like a bomb. I know in the seminary it was never mentioned. Now there were many theologians, bishops and priests who thought that it was an antiquated encyclical, that we should move along with the times. Though there was much support for the encyclical, I could say that no document has ever met with as much dissent within the church. In spite of the dissent and in spite of widespread use of contraception among Catholics, the church continually reiterates its opposition to contraception as a great moral wrong. Now I'll tell you why in a few minutes. Pope John Paul II has made opposition to contraception one of the cornerstones of his pontificate, has written and spoken extensively on the topic. Some of you here may have heard me speak about the theology of the body. I've even given a parish mission on that. was all about the beauty of sexuality. You see, what the church has done through Paul VI and John Paul II is, I believe, elevated sexuality to what it should be. What our culture has often done with sexuality, and you know we live in the world, we're all part of it, is that we have degraded and debased sexuality. It is meant to be something beautiful, something appreciated, something that leads to truth. But in many cases, you and I know that it simply has been used to use other people. It's been like an object. I think the experience of the last many decades has revealed that the church has been very wise in its continual affirmation of this teaching, but we have begun to see that contraception leads to many vicious wrongs in societies. It facilitates the sexual revolution, which leads to unwanted pregnancy and abortion. It has made women much more open to sexual exploitation by men. In fact, Humanae Vitae predicted a general lowering of morality should contraception become widely available. There is little need for me to provide a full set of statistics to demonstrate the consequences of the sexual revolution. For who is not familiar with the epidemic of teenage pregnancies, venereal disease, which, by the way, is on the rise, divorces and AIDS, which I read again this morning, 56,000 new cases of AIDS have been discovered in the United States, I think, this last year. Only 10 years ago, the divorce rate was 1 out of 3 marriages. 10 years ago. Today, 1 out of 2 marriages ends in divorce. Only 10 years ago, 4 out of 10 teenagers were sexually active. Today, it's 6 out of 10. 22% of white babies are born out of wedlock. 67% of African babies, African American babies, 67% are born out of wedlock. It's a frightening statistic. The millions of abortions over the last decade, the phenomenal spread of AIDS alone indicate that we have a serious problem with sexuality. Again, this morning I want to make something very clear. In no way am I judging anyone's situation here. I speak as a father who loves his family, not as a judge, a father who cares about who you are and about your sexuality. I know as a priest I often meet women who have lived with men for years and they're discouraged because they don't want to get married. Well, why should they? They have everything without marriage. They don't have to pay health benefits. They don't have to take care of anything, and especially if you're on contraception, no children are coming, so why give totally to the other person? I remember premature and promiscuous sexuality prevent many from establishing good marriages and good family life. Few deny that a healthy sexuality and a strong family life are among the most necessary elements for human happiness and well-being. The church teaches that contraception is evil because it brings about evil results. It violates the dignity of the human person. How often in our culture do people say they've been used sexually, manipulated? And it makes it much easier today to have affairs if you can contracept the sex act. It makes it very easy for people to fool around because there are no consequences. We often speak of the fear of pregnancy, which I believe to be a very curious phrase. Fear of poverty or nuclear holocaust or tyranny is understandable, but why a fear of pregnancy? Think of it. Afraid of getting pregnant. It's not what the human body, the woman's body was made for. And I don't mean that just to be pregnant. That's not my point. But the body has been created beautifully. Beautifully, the male and female body. And when they come together, that's a miracle of God. We speak about accidental pregnancies as if getting pregnant were like getting hit by a car. But the truth is that if a pregnancy results from an act of sexual intercourse, this means that something has gone right with the act, not that something has gone wrong. In our society, we've lost sight of the fundamental truth that if we're not ready for babies, then we shouldn't have any intercourse. We've lost sight of the fact that intercourse, making love and making babies, are inherently connected for good reason. For good reason, they're connected. In our time, sexual relations are treated casually. No great commitment is implied in having intercourse with another. Babies are treated as an unwelcome intrusion on the sexual act. It's what we've created. And see, this has been subtle for 40 years. And after a while, we begin to believe, well, that must be right. Sex is only for recreation, nothing else. And we see the results of that in our culture with so many broken people. People who have had unwanted pregnancies, people who feel devalued as human beings, and on and on. It is good to keep in mind that fertility is a great good. To be fertile is a state of health for an adult person. It is those among us who are not fertile who need to be helped and who seek treatment for infertility. Women now take the pill to thwart their fertility as if fertility were a disease against which we need to be cured. Contraception treats a woman's body as if there was something wrong with it. Think of that. Contraception enters a note of tremendous negation in the act of intercourse. Love-making should be a most wonderful act of affirmation, a tremendous yes to another person, a way of conveying to another that he or she is wonderful and completely accepted. This is conveyed by making a total gift of oneself to another. Total gift, not contracepting the gift, but making a total gift to another. And see, what you want to tell the person when you're having that intimate time is, I want to give you everything, my entire being. But then you say, accept. I won't give you this part of me or that part of me. We forget what a marvelous thing it is to be able to bring forth a new human being. When a man and a woman have a child together, it's an act that changes the cosmos. Something has come to existence that will never pass out of existence. Each soul is immortal and is destined for immortal life. Contraception is wrong not only because it violates the procreative meaning of a sexual act, but also because it violates the unitive meaning of a sexual act. John Paul II explains how the sexual act is meant to be a total self-giving, and that in withholding their fertility from one another, spouses are not giving totally of themselves. Contraceptives convey the message that while intercourse is desired, there is no desire for a permanent bond with the other person. It reduces the sexual act to a contraception. So again, is the church saying that we shouldn't plan? Absolutely not. In this parish, every couple preparing for marriage is introduced to natural family planning. I insist upon that. Whether the couple want to go or not, they have to go to at least an introductory session, because I want them to know that there are other ways for couples to enjoy and understand their fertility. Not to contracept, but to understand that if they don't want to have a pregnancy at a particular time, they learn what to do. Not to have intercourse during fertile times, but to come to understand that the body can be experienced in different ways. Sexuality, as important as it is, moves even to greater understanding when one can, at times, use caution and respect. So again, I say, how many children should we have? I'm not going to tell you that. Church says be responsible. But the method to limit the size of the family must be moral. The reason I like natural family plan, because it's moral. You see, we live in an age where people are so careful about what they eat, what they drink, how they exercise. But yet they take pills, they take things in their bodies that can even abort a child in the womb. The church is not against sex. I'd like to tell you that right now. If anything, the church loves sex. Let me clarify that. The church takes sexuality, the beauty of sexuality, and tells the world, we've got another message. It's great. It's wonderful. We've been created in the image and likeness of God. There's so much more to understand. There's so much mystery in sexuality. Come and join us and understand it. And the world just says, treat people as objects and have fun. See the difference? And it's subtle. We don't realize it. So I'm just giving you loaves and fishes today. I'm going to end with this. But I thought it was important on the 40th anniversary to just give you a better understanding. And again, not damning people. I'm going to tell you, we weren't taught anything for many years by the church on this issue. But I think it's time for us to begin, perhaps to read Humanae Vitae, which is a very small encyclical, by the way, and to begin perhaps better understanding why the church teaches what she teaches. It's my hope that after we finish the Life in the Spirit seminar in the fall, we're going to begin that September 14th, that we'll have a few evenings on Humanae Vitae with guest speakers to just reintroduce many people to the beauty of this document, why it was published, and why today it speaks a louder and more prophetic message than ever. Thank you for listening on this hot Sunday.